Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures podcast here on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett. On this week's show, our topic is upland habitat conservation. And joining us here today is Eric Sytsma, Habitat Protection Officer with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. Eric, thanks for joining the show. How's it going?
Absolutely. It's going great. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, we're excited to have you here on the show, and you might first just kind of talk with the listeners about your involvement with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever and how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, you bet. Pretty common story with Pheasants Forever. I grew up on a farm just east of Oskaloosa, Iowa, and southeast Iowa, and wanted to spend all my time hunting and fishing. Went to school for it, went to Iowa State University and got a degree in wildlife ecology. And then worked a variety of jobs for the Iowa DNR, some other nonprofit partners, county government, and ended up moving back to Mahaska County, Iowa in 2010 to take my first full-time gig with Pheasants Forever as a farm bill biologist. And that job's working with landowners to do conservation practices and help them get into programs like CRP. And then after that, I was a regional rep, and now I'm the Habitat Protection Officer. So it's been with PF for a while. It's all focused on habitat here in Iowa and across the country.
Do you still get to do some hunting and fishing these days?
Yeah, I do my best. Honestly, the biggest hindrance is just being busy. It's amazing. You mentioned you had kids. I've got 3 kids as well, and finding time to get everybody outdoors gets harder and harder as they get busier. But yeah, I make time to get out and do some hunting and do some fishing in the summer for sure.
For folks that maybe aren't familiar with some of the work that Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever does, can you discuss with them the overall purpose of the organizations and your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pheasants Forever is known as the Habitat Organization for a good reason. Our priority is to make wildlife habitat, help people access that habitat, educate people about wildlife habitat and the benefits of it and outdoor recreation, and to do policy work to increase habitat and access to it. So it's pretty straightforward. We're a nonprofit that's been around since the early 80s, and we're present in pretty much all the contiguous United States and even Canada.
Pretty broad question here, but why is upland habitat conservation so important to the outdoors?
Well, I mean, there's too many reasons to list, honestly. But I mean, everything from sustainability, you're talking carbon sequestration, water quality, water quantity with flood mitigation. But honestly, what got me into it is quality of life. Everybody knows the benefits of being outdoors, being out in nature, and unless you have a property of your own, making sure that you can ensure that habitat is out there and accessible is really important to me. And that's something that our organization takes pretty seriously.
What initiatives are you involved with as a habitat protection officer? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I dabble in a lot of different things, but the majority of my role as habitat protection officer is working with the organization's Build a Wildlife Area program. So that is our public access program. So we work with partners, like in Iowa, examples would be the Iowa DNR, the County Conservation Board System, and the Natural Heritage Foundation are 3 big partners that we work with very frequently. And we just work utilizing our partnerships and our chapter fundraisers and our donors and supporters to leverage funds with grant dollars and try to work to secure properties and make them open to public recreation.
What have you learned along the way when working with some of these partners? Are they committed to this type of mission as well?
That's the best part of working for PF in general and doing the job that I do. I mean, we have some just absolutely incredible partners here in the state. When I went to college for wildlife, so it's fun. You go to meet with partners and it's old college buddies, which certainly doesn't hurt anything. But yeah, the partnerships we have with the conservation board system at the local level, and then partners like the Iowa DNR, the staffs are incredible. They're in it for the same reasons that we are, wanting to do good things for wildlife habitat for the citizens of Iowa, and that makes it a lot of fun.
Earlier, when you were mentioning keeping land open to the public, I know there's a lot of public opportunities in the area that you and I are located. What are some challenges or maybe some barriers of getting some of that work done?
Well, I hate to default saying money. We were just on another call. It's like, well, you start with money and then you figure out the rest. But funding is always a challenge. But honestly, I find it more of an opportunity. I hate to look directly at the challenges. The fun part about growing up in Iowa is you got good people all around you. And the fun part about my job is working with those partners, but also working with landowners. My first job was as a farm bill biologist, and that job was literally going out and meeting landowners at their kitchen table and talking about the goals they'd like to accomplish, whether it was just reducing some erosion or putting in wildlife habitat or, trying to get more birds or more deer on the property. So there's opportunities to start building that relationship. Down the road a long ways, sometimes you'll have a landowner that wants to leave their own legacy for conservation, and protect their property with an easement or make it public and try to get it into the conservation board system or into the DNR's public lands habitat system as a WMA. And, being able to help them with that is pretty special. And it's fun when you're in it with people that really want to make a difference. Challenges are all over the place. Sometimes it's figuring out how to actually fundraise for a project, which is part of my job, is working with the partners, looking for grant funding. I work with our chapters to do private fundraising locally through our local chapters and our fundraising model. Some of it is finding the right piece of property, because our program, we built a program guidance that has several things that we're trying to focus on. So we're strategically protecting property. We're not just doing it scattered across the state. So things like working in sensitive habitat areas, things like floodplains in Iowa that can not only address habitat, but also water quality and flood mitigation. Trying to look at properties that are immediately adjacent to other public resources. So with wildlife populations, a large chunk of ground is much more stable and much more beneficial and able to produce more benefits than a bunch of little bitty pieces that are kind of scattered or isolated. So finding the right piece in the right place with the right person, figuring out how you're going to acquire that property. And then as Pheasants Forever, we don't tend to hold property in perpetuity. We don't want to own it forever. We don't have a large direct management staff across the country, and we're working in a majority of the country. So what we would generally try to do is work with our partners at the state or at the county level to find an agency that would be a better fit for long-term ownership and management, that has a staff on the ground already, that's locally knowledgeable and has those resources and equipment to manage it.
Earlier, you touched on some work with landowners. How does Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever work with farmers, and how important is their involvement?
That's critical. So Pheasants Forever, overall, we have a little over 500 employees right now, I believe. About 350 of them are what we call farm bill biologists or similar roles, where they're actually working out of USDA offices, and their full-time job is to work with landowners and help them accomplish their conservation goals. And, honestly, in a state like Iowa, where 90+% of the ground is privately owned, if you want to impact conservation, if you want to impact wildlife populations and water quality, you have to be present working with those landowners. And it is a really cool opportunity to have done that for a few years, getting out on a person's property and seeing how much they care about it. And seeing the issues that they're currently trying to address and being able to help them, whether that's just, putting together a seed plan for some CRP that they're trying to make sure produces as much benefits as possible. So it's a good, diverse native seed mix. Or, you're out there and they might bring up a few other issues. Hey, we got, a gully starting over here. Well, maybe there's a solution with equip. Or if you got pasture ground and you're down in the south part of the state and you got some cedar tree encroachment, that's bad for the pasture quality, and it's bad for upland wildlife. So working with other programs to get funding to help them remove those cedar trees. It's a really cool opportunity to get to work with landowners, see how much they care about their resource, and help them accomplish the goal that's good for everybody.
With a lot of the work and projects you've been having going on, how are the populations looking like for upland birds and game?
So that'll be an interesting one. So the bird populations in Iowa especially have been doing really well. Down in my neck of the woods, quail were at a real high a few years ago, and then we got that big ice storm, and that set them back pretty hard. This year's going to be interesting. So they're doing the August roadside counts here soon, and that's something that the DNR does. So that'll give us a pretty decent look at the trend for this year compared to previous years. It's been really wet here. So I know driving around, Northwest Iowa has a ton of flooding going on. If you watch the news, there's a lot of water quality issues up there. Sorry, water quantity issues up there. So that's, I'm assuming, going to reduce nesting success a little bit this year, just based on the timing of it. Down here in Mahaska County, a good majority of our upland habitat is actually in the floodplain. So on a dry year, it's going to produce a lot of birds, but on a year like this, a good majority of it is underwater. So, I mean, we'll see. There's still habitat in the uplands that is not going to be as impacted by that. But I'm going to guess it's definitely going to hurt nesting success this year. So we'll see when the DNR releases their info here in another month and a half or so.
I know there are a few spots that I hunt on public around the area I'm located, and deer and turkey hunting. And the times that I've been there, I mean, you wouldn't believe all the cackling from pheasants all here in the morning and evenings. And so I think that's always a good signal whenever you're hearing a whole bunch of them out there.
Man, that's the best thing in the world. I'm a bow hunter myself, and I love going out in the morning and setting up and watching the roosters cackle and fly around in and out of the corn in the mornings. It's wonderful. And the thing to remember is, if you have quality habitat, you're going to have wildlife. I mean, as far as overall trends, they're gonna ebb and flow, and weather's a huge factor in that. But if you have a patch of high quality prairie in Iowa with some food around it, you're going to have wildlife there, because it's going to thrive.
This past bow season, I think there was one time there my heart stopped for a few seconds, because I was walking in before daylight and some kind of some, I guess you would call it like river bottom habitat, some habitat that was up over my shoulders, and it was a really quiet morning with no wind. You could probably sound like a freight train walking down through there. And then in the dark before daylight, I took one more step, and a big old rooster came out from under my feet and about set me back there a little bit. I think my heart stopped a few seconds. I'm sure that's probably happened to you from time to time.
Countless times. So one of my favorite places to hunt, it's this big chunk of ground. The landowner is a wonderful landowner. He's nice enough to let me hunt, and has for my entire life. I grew up, my parents and he was friends, and setting up there last fall. Beautiful, calm morning. I get down there before light. I'm sitting kind of where it transitions from crop ground down into the floodplain and down into some upland habitat down in there, and like you mentioned, tall grass, maybe some patches of willow trees, maybe a little standing water on a wet year. And I'm just sitting there, and I don't use the blind. So I'm just sitting still and listening. And all of a sudden, everything's waking up, and then all the birds start waking up and cackling. Next thing you know, they're all headed up into the crops. And it's the same in the evening. You're sitting there, and they glide down off of the hill all at the same time. They all work their way to the edge of the field. You just get to watch a group of them fly down into the prairie to roost for that. It's beautiful. Nothing better to see. Except for that big buck walking in. That's right up there too.
Yeah, we'll take that, no doubt. Well, as we kind of wind down here, Eric, what are some upcoming goals for Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever?
I should have taken a glance at our strategic plan. I mean, honestly, I'm not going to throw out any numbers, because as soon as I do that, I'm probably going to misquote them and annoy myself. But we're looking to do a lot of things. One, we're looking to work with the private landowners to increase their ability to do wildlife habitat, whether that's helping them get into programs, whether it's working with our government affairs team to secure funding for those conservation programs through the Farm Bill and other programs, trying to make it possible for them to have the tools that they need to do the best job they can for conservation on their properties, because we all know they care about them. That's their livelihood. They want to do the best they can. We're trying to, through the program that I work with, build a wildlife area, create more public access. Quality of life in Iowa, a lot of it revolves around those public access opportunities. and trying to increase those. So we're going to constantly be working on that as well, and doing that, I should say, with willing landowners that want to be involved in that, obviously. But creating public access opportunities, creating more habitat on private access, and working with landowners. And the other thing, working with our education department to help people that want to learn how to get outside, learn how to hunt, learn how to fish, get those opportunities to do so, and teach them so they can enjoy the outdoors as well.
How can listeners get more information from the organization today?
Well, you got a variety of options. You can check out our website, pheasantsforever.org, or quailforever.org if you're looking for more quail-specific information. We've got information on social media. We're on Facebook. I believe we're on Instagram. And we also have a podcast. It's called On the Wing. And our VP of Marketing is Bob St. Pierre, and he runs that podcast and does an excellent job. Our headquarters are out of St. Paul, but he covers stuff from all over the Midwest. It's a great time. He's fun to listen to, and you'll learn a lot.
Good luck in your initiatives moving forward, and thanks a lot for taking a few minutes to come on our show here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun.
Again, that's Eric Sytsma, Habitat Protection Officer with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, right here on Brownfield's Outdoor Adventures. I'm Brent Barnett. Thanks for watching this week.